We're at the end of the year. 2022 has come and gone, and if you were to ask me what I thought about the year in terms of training shoes, I would tell you that it was an absolute fire year for training shoes. There was a lot of excitement this year because we got not only one, but two brand new players in the training space, which is usually just the same, maybe 5 companies every year. More competition equals more innovation for future releases, so I can't wait to see how things shake up over the next few years. Today, we're gonna be talking about my top 5 training shoes of the year. So, like every year, I always want to tell you guys that this is a completely subjective video, and all of the shoes that I'm picking today are going to be top picks. The order that I put them in is just my preferential order, but objectively, if you were to put these out there in any order, I think anyone would agree that these are the best training shoes this year. As always, any shoe that has made my top 5 in the previous years and is still for sale is still a top training shoe pick. So I know what a lot of you guys are gonna be thinking, why is the Strike Haze not on this list? It's because it was on last year's list. It was #1 on last year's list, and it is still a top pick for this year. The top 5 shoes this year and every year are extremely competitive, and it's really hard for me to just narrow the year down into 5 shoes. So before we get started with my top 5 picks, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the runner-up or honorable mention this year, which is the Under Armour Tri-Base Rain 4s. Not the Pros, the 4s. These could easily be in the top 5, and if you wanted something that had the lowest drop, then look no further. You're probably gonna wanna go with the Under Armour Tri-Base Rain 4s. The improvements that they made this year to the midsole cushioning are excellent. They make the shoe feel completely different than the previous models. They widened out the shoe a lot in the toe box. The fit is much better than it's ever been. The only reason they're not in my top 5 is because I just felt a little bit more comfortable doing the majority of my workouts in the 5th pick. And the 5th pick would be the Reebok Nano 12. The Nano 11s were probably one of my least favorite training shoes of all time. I would actually probably say that they are the worst Nano ever. The Nano 12 still rides on the Nano 11 platform, but they made changes to the pattern of the upper to make it so that the front of the shoe rests a little bit closer to the ground. So the problem that I had with the Nano 11 was that I thought the toe spring was a little bit too crazy, and then you would just get pitched forward when you're doing any lifts. The toe control on the Nano 12 is much better. You do have the float ride insert in the forefoot of the shoe to give you more cushioning for running and plyometric movements. And then the heel of the shoe has a slimmer TPU heel clip, but it still provides excellent stability for your lifting movements. The heel on the shoe is solid. This drop is not my favorite at 7mm. The upper and fit on the shoe is very comfortable, and the only real downfall on the shoe is that it's just not durable for rope climbs. Though it does do rope climbs well, the outsole does have the tendency to want to peel away from the medial side of the shoe. The best part about these is that you can usually find them for like 40% off. So they're actually probably the best value when it comes to training shoes on this list. The normal Nano 12 is the only one that I recommend. Maybe the Nano 6000 if you like the looks of that, but if it was the Fronings, the Adventures, I would say just stay away from those models. They're not as good as the standard Nano 12. All right, so moving on to the 4th pick of 2022, which probably will surprise some of you guys out there, and that's because it is from NOBULL. It's the Trainer Plus. They finally gave us an updated training shoe. They actually gave us 2 updates to the training shoe because there was the Trainer Plus and the Court Trainer, which were so similar to the Trainer Plus that I didn't even bother doing a review of them, though I really do like the Court Trainers as well. I know a lot of people out there clown on the Trainer Plus because the really tall midsole stack height, and if you did not care for that and you did not want that much midsole cushioning, then I would just say go for the Court Trainers. They have a little bit less, it's more than the normal trainer, but it's a little bit less than the Trainer Plus. Even though I thought the Trainer Plus was kind of a boring upgrade to the normal trainer, it's still a very good training shoe. The increased midsole cushioning does give you a little bit more cushion when you're running, you're doing box jumps, other plyometric movements. The shoes are still very responsive, even though the midsole cushioning is that thick, and they are rock solid stable. The grip on these shoes is excellent, and they are some of the best rope climbing shoes, not to mention they're still NOBULLs and they're incredibly durable. So if you're somebody that got bored with the original trainer years ago, I definitely recommend that you check out the Trainer Plus. It is a solid update to their trainer lineup. Okay, so for the third pick, we have old reliable, the Nike Metcon 8. I can't believe it's been 8 iterations of this shoe already. I remember getting the original athlete pack for the Nike Metcon 1, and it's no surprise that these things are still around. They are still some of the best training shoes, and I think subjectively they could be anyone's top pick. So the Metcon 8 this year was not that much of an upgrade over the Metcon 7 to me, but we did get some nice quality of life upgrades, like the shoe is more flexible in the forefoot. It makes it a little bit easier to run in. Obviously, it doesn't make it as good of a shoe to lift in, but I think a lot of people would sacrifice the amount of stability these shoes have, which is still really good, for just a little bit more comfort on the day-to-day grind. So far, the colorways of the Metcon 8 have also been really, really awesome. This is the white, gold, and black colorway, which is just a clean, classic look. And even though the Metcon logo in the medial side of the shoe was extremely polarizing, I have grown to be a little bit more comfortable looking at it. I'll still never say that I like it, but it doesn't really bother me as much as it did when I first got these shoes. If you're looking for just a straight up competition shoe, then I'd still say that the Metcon 8s are probably one of the best picks. The only things that these are not so great for are just long runs, but everything in between, these things are some of the best shoes. And I'd say that of all the shoes we're talking about today, these are the most stable lifting shoes of them all. So like pretty much every year, you can't go wrong with the Nike Metcon series. Okay, so we're down to the second best shoe of 2022, and I have to say that it was really hard for me to pick between first and second place, because I actually used the second place shoe probably more often than I did the first place shoe. But when it came down to it, I actually just preferred using the first place shoe more. So the second best shoe of the year is the TYR CXT-1 trainers. So the reason I used these more than the first place pick was because I was already done with the review of the first place shoe, and I wanted to make sure that I had the most complete review when it came to the CXT-1s, because it is a brand new shoe and it is a brand new brand in the training space. That being said, they did come out with a stellar training shoe. The CXT-1s are extremely complete when you think about what you need to do in a training shoe. They fit really well. The stability on these shoes is excellent. Admittedly, I've never been a fan of high drop shoes, but you don't notice it that much in the CXT-1s with their 9mm drop. I felt extremely comfortable using these for anything in CrossFit. Like, I could go into the gym not knowing what the workout was, and if I had my CXT-1s, I would not even bat an eyelash on what was written on the whiteboard. But when you compare a shoe like this to the Metcon 8, which is a lot more stable but lacks the comfort and day-to-day wearability, I would choose the CXT-1s, because I still feel just as comfortable doing my lifts in this shoe as the Metcon 8, but I would want to wear this shoe on the daily more often than the Metcon 8. And I have to say that these can easily be the #1 pick as well. It just kind of depends on your preferences. All right, the time has finally come for the top training shoe of 2022, and it honestly should come as no surprise. It's none other than the hype machine itself, the RAD One by r.a.d. So these shoes are one of the earliest shoes that I reviewed this year, and since that review, I've pretty much in my head picked these as my #1 training shoe. These are the most complete training shoe to me this year. They do everything well. They're more comfortable than the CXT-1s. They're more comfortable than the Metcons. I feel just as stable and comfortable lifting in these shoes as I do the CXT-1s, the Metcon 8s, the NOBULLs. These look cooler than any of the shoes on this list, in my opinion. That's a very subjective thing, but I do really like the way that the r.a.ds look. They've come out with some really awesome colorways this year. You have the black and gum CrossFit South Brooklyn ones. You got the court blue and the court black, which probably were the most popular shoes this year. And then almost everything in between had a colorway for somebody. And the reason why I know that is because they almost always sold out. These things sell out in like the first minute of them dropping, and that's because the hype is real on these shoes. They are excellent training shoes. They do everything right. The one possibly negative thing about the shoe is that it's just a little bit hard to get your hands on, but I can assure you that once you get your hands on the r.a.d. ones, you will become a believer of the hype. These shoes are excellent, and since the beginning of the year, these have been my top training shoe of the year. If I were to do a competition, if I were to do day-to-day training, if I were to go out walking around, I took these to Disneyland, I wore them around, and I was completely comfortable that whole day. These are my top training shoe of 2022. But with that said, I will reiterate that any of these shoes can easily be #1, just kind of depending on your preferences and what you're looking for in a training shoe. Even the Tri-Base Rain 4, which were the runner-ups this year, they could also be your top training shoe this year. These picks are always very subjective, but I think if you were to give any of these shoes to anyone training, they would appreciate using them. So that concludes it for this year's top 5 picks. And if you guys have any questions about the shoes that we went over this year, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I want to give a huge shout out to you guys for following me all throughout these years. It's been a wild ride, and I can't wait to get 2023 started. I can't wait to see what kind of training shoes and innovation we have in the training space coming for us. As always, if you guys like this video, please hit that thumbs up button. It helps me a lot. Subscribe to my channel for all the latest in training and fitness gear reviews, and I hope you guys have a happy and safe New Year's. Thanks for watching, guys.